everybody. Gina Minyard here, getting ready for a live yoga class. So let me know if you're here. Send hello. It's always nice to hear from y'all. Okay. So it's Thursday, so this is the last Thursday of April for TLC Thursdays. I think I'm figuring out what I'm going to do next month for my live schedule. I'm not sure yet, but I'm pretty sure this will be the last TLC Thursday. We'll probably keep doing Thursdays, just not do something different. So good to be here with you all. If you're watching now or the recorded video later. If you have something for calf smashing, let's do it. Today is special. Well, it's always so good. So roll up your blanket from the long edge. I say that meaning I would say it's so good for what we're going to do today, but it always is, even especially today with what we're going to work on. But what calf smashing does, I always get this question: why are we calf smashing? And there's a lot of reasons. One, and first of all, this is good for your knees. I know, so if you have knee issues, it can be a little intense. You can always sit up. Hey, Wanda. Yay, good to see you. Let me see. I'm going to skip back so that I can see the screen as much as the camera. Okay, so roll up the blanket, put it behind your knees. You can sit on a block also, if that is no extra height. You can also lean forward so it's not so intense on the knees there. So unless you have some ligament damage in your knees, then this would not be so good. But and you can do something else. But otherwise, it makes space in the knees. If you do have some cartilage, meniscus issues, it can actually be really helpful for that. And most people, though, their discomfort is just that, man, they're tight. Calves are tight, feet are tight, maybe even the quads are tight. So this can be really intense with that. But that just means that you need it, that this is something you really need. The fascia, the muscles, this is basically neuromuscular, myofascial, not neuromuscular, myofascial release for calves, hamstrings, opens up the fascial connection to the whole back chain of the body. Now it also opens up, and this is why I said it's important for what we're doing today. Hello, Andy. Glad you're here. It's also going to be about, so we're going to open up our pranic flow today. Prana edition of TLC Thursday. And my Ayurveda teacher, Kate Stillman, she's fabulous. One time we were doing this in her class, and she was saying that the tightness that you feel in your muscles is really a tightness of prana, a tightness of the pranic pathways that move through subtle channels in the body. Now, this is, of course, Eastern anatomy. It's not something that we necessarily acknowledge in the Western model of the body, but there's pranic pathways that move through your whole physiology. And when those pathways are open, when the vital energy is moving in a balanced and healthy way, we feel good. We feel connected to the earth. We feel connected to the cosmic energy through the breath. And that's a big deal. So this is, the calf smashing is actually not only massaging your muscles and fascia, but it's helping to open up a downward flow of that pranic energy through the legs. Many of us are super tight. You can even say it's as if we're desiccated, dried out in those energy channels. Like water, prana is often likened to water, like the flow of water through the body. It's the pranic body is likened to the flow of water. And if something is blocked, right, there's stagnation, there's a lack of nourishment, things, it's just the lack of flow. And this leads to our just sort of lack of ease. Right, so the class I taught before this one, my students were sharing, as we're checking in, and it's another, therapeutic-based class, that really mentally struggling right now. A lot of anxiousness, a lot of stress, and fair enough. This is a really intense time we're living in. In terms of what yoga can do for us, you know, it's very hard to change our mental state just from wanting to change our mental state alone. Yoga gives us a way to open up our bodies, to open up the pranic flow, and therefore to open up the breath. Sometimes if we just go right to the breath, you know, try to deepen and lengthen the breath right away like that, that can cause more anxiousness, right? That can put a stress where there's already stress. So today in our practice, we're gonna focus on the flow of prana, how we can open up the flow of the life force in a way that, yes, is about then shifting our experience of our breathing, right? The actual experience of receiving the breath, how the breath flows through us. And we know when that is deeper and more full, that directly addresses the nervous system, how we're feeling in our nervous system, which governs our sense of well-being or not well-being, right? But again, on a deeper level, we're talking about pranic flow. And so we'll open that up for our physical nourishment and well-being, but also our mental health. The way when prana flows, we feel again supported by the earth, connected to the cosmic energy, and just feeling the flow instead of feeling stuck or feeling so caught up in, you know, the intensity of whatever we're experiencing that we lose sight of the bigger picture. Okay, so calf smashing is actually where we can start with that. So if you keep moving the roll back. Again, opening up, again, if this is tight, it just means, man, there's tightness, right? There's something that you need. So you can always moderate that. Of course, lean forward if it's too much, and you can ease off of it a little bit. But often in yoga, I like to call it therapeutic discomfort, when we are staying with the things that are maybe a little uncomfortable. Obviously that has to be done skillfully. There's certain discomforts that are like, nope, that's not good for you. You need to change it or come out of it. But we get better at discerning what is a therapeutic discomfort versus a signal that something is wrong. Most likely here, therapeutic discomfort. All right. So, all right, that's enough. So take a seat. You can sit right up on that roll or fold your blanket and sit up a little higher if you need to. Stretch your legs out to just, you know, you don't have to stretch forward. You just lean back on your hand just to give yourself a little space after the calf smashing. And then take your seat and sit up on your rolled up blanket. Or refold it if you like to sit more on a platform, or you can double it up with your blocks. It's sitting high enough to where you turn inner thighs down, widen sit bones apart, to where we balance the pelvis and the spine. And that also, you know, the physical structure is actually supported by the energy flow. And when our physical structure is out of alignment, the energy flow gets blocked. So by just lining up our bones, again, that's helping to open up these energy pathways once again. And even that, the prana is deeper than the physical body. The physical body, we work with it to keep opening all the way up. All right, so take a good seat, we say, and just allow yourself to settle. Come to your breath, and I invite you to just notice. It's not good to start right away with just deepening the breath, really getting in there with effort. We want to just pause and notice and give ourselves just our attention. Noticing what is, not going in there right away to try to make a change, right? Just feel what your breath is revealing to you about your current state, whether it's more shallow and maybe up in the chest. If there's a mental state of more of a depression or a heaviness, you'll feel that in the breath too. Like the exhale is very heavy. It's like hard sometimes to receive a full breath in, right? So we just notice, or sometimes an erraticness of the breath, right? So just noticing, and maybe you've noticed that by calf smashing, there's just already a sense of a flow, just a downward release that's welcomes a sense of breath flowing in more. And so just for then another few moments, just gently, like how can you just make a little more space for the inhale to descend, and also send the breath out, the exhale just more fully out. And it is about the space in the torso. And the more, of course, you empty the exhale out, the more the inhale can fill you back up. And that's part of what we'll practice today, but also with a lot of other subtleties. There's really a lot we can say about prana and how our practice is supporting that and our well-being. So just bring your hands to touch at the heart, and we'll just explore and open up to that flow of life that is found in the breath, found in the pranas, the vital energy that is in all living things, that really is the same intelligence that governs the whole universe. May we feel more connected to that through our practice, for our physical and mental health. So opening with one Om, inhale fully. Bow your head to your heart. Release your hands to your thighs. Lift your head, open your eyes. All right, so come on up to table pose. If you have a block, place it between the upper thighs. And that, as you give the block a squeeze through the thighs, it'll help you to use your legs to get up into your hips more. We'll get to that more as we move through our practice. But for now, just elongate through your spine, feel your breath, and give the block just a gentle squeeze. And with your inhale, as if from your legs, lift your tailbone, lift your sit bones, tailbone, and start to follow that wave through, lifting heart, lifting head. And exhale, curl the tailbone under as you tone your abdomen gently and round your back and stretch through. And we'll do this for several rounds. So again, with the inhale, elongate through, lift your tail, lift your heart, lift your head. And with the exhale, curl the tailbone under, round your back, stretch through. And so continue in this way, moving with your breath. And start by just moving with your breath and letting that just start to get you, the body, let the body then, the movement of the body support a deepening of the breath, right? So when you move into cow pose, that lift your tail and head, it does make space for the inhale to move in more deeply. And then when you round under and tone your abdomen in and up, that will actually push the exhale out a little more fully. So we're starting to deepen the breath by how we're moving the body. And I think that actually can help us to deepen the breath in a more sort of organic way, instead of just trying to kind of force it, which sometimes can be stressful if we just go right to trying to deepen the breath, right? And then meanwhile, just getting moving, then it's actually more subtle and something we want, that we also can start to feel that actually the breath is moving the body. So can you inhale your spine into lifting the tail and lifting the heart and the head, and then with your exhale, with the exhale lead the way. This is a little more profound, right? When the exhale moves out, then moving your spine and your core muscles to go with the breath. So a couple more rounds, just at your own pace. And meanwhile, you can, of course, work out the kinks in your torso. There's little side stretches you need, or little twists. And so it all, of course, moves together physically, energetically, getting what we need. So the next time you exhale into cat, let's take that into a child's pose. So hold that more rounded shape. Remove your block. Separate the knees wide and put your feet back. And hips to heels, and knees further apart for this child's pose. It actually keeps a little more width in your sit bones. It keeps more of a wideness in your pelvic floor and the diaphragm. So you keep that channel open. But then as you still lift your core, this will help you to exhale and to ground down, to really ground and release downwards through your hips and your legs. And I like to keep the head higher and the chest higher. So maybe you put a block under your head, if that feels more comfortable. And then you can push gently down with your hands, down and forward, to add some weight, to add some gravity as you push your thighs down, your hips more down. And often the main way the prana gets blocked, one main way is probably the main way, is this downward flow, right? That's why we feel up in our heads so much. And so one more breath here. And our culture tends to support that. Like we are very stimulated, so much screen time, we're busy. That's prana moving up and getting stuck, right? So this, we want to get down and get open and just feel what happens with that. All right, so with that, come up to table, and we maybe did this, we've done this in this session, but it's just such an important thing not to open up the feet also. So we smash the calf here, smashing your feet. You sit one foot up on the other foot and just sit back on that, which again might be uncomfortable, therapeutically uncomfortable. But the opening up the tissues of the feet, and you can do this lots of other ways. This is kind of what I would call quick and dirty. Just to get a lot out of just a minute or so on each side. So using the top of that one foot to massage and work out the sole of the other foot. You can do it all the way down into the ball of the foot, and close to the toes, and then up into the center of the foot more, and just sometimes drag it down. And I like to wiggle the knee. I'm facing this way so you can see what's happening. The knee that I'm sitting on, right, up and around a little more. All right, and then we'll try the other side. So switch it out. And one foot on top of the other foot. The top of your foot has this cool little pointy bone that just works great as a little massage implement. This is if you were made that way, right? To massage the other foot. And again, opening up fascia, opening up the tissues in the foot is opening up the pranic flow. We get very tight all the way down to our feet. We wear tied up shoes, right? We walk on flat surfaces instead of, in our ancestral days, barefoot or loose sandals and running through the savannah and the forest and all the things. So when the feet and the calves are tight, all right, so come on out of that. I'm coming up to the table. When the feet are tight, our whole energy system is tight. So then tuck your toes under and sit on your heels. Here we go, stretching out those calves a little bit more, the toes and the feet. Again, this can be obviously intense. So knees can be wider, toes can be tucked under in that way. Maybe you're sitting up on a block even here, right? Or you're leaning forward and just, if you have some knee issues, you can't sit back all the way, just push, like lean back, but push into it, right? You can lift up a little bit there, try to get it happening. Okay. So then, good, put your feet back and just pat down the toes there. All right, and then down dog is a pose of stretching calves and feet. So what that means is press your hands down well and move your knees back and shift your hips back. And just do your best to keep a nice long spine, right? And then you're gonna lift up and just keep your knees bent. Down dog is a complex pose. Just make this as much as you can about your feet. So that means bend your knees and stretch your hips up high. And think about opening up the soles of your feet by pressing your big toes down, spreading your pinky toes apart, and pushing into the ball of the foot like you're trying to actually lift your heels up and lift the strength of the muscles up. But then keep that as you then press firmly down through one heel and the other. And whether or not your heel comes down doesn't matter. The goal of down dog is not to get your heels to the floor. So many things going on in down dog. But yes, use this stretch to just, again, get some opening there from sit bone to heel and heel to sit bone, just getting that space. So bending the knees goes far to help open that up. All right, so from there, walk your feet towards your hands, or you can walk your hands to your feet and feet hips width once you get there. With an inhale, arch up to halfway and bend your knees, hands on tops of thighs, pushing down into the thighs there. And just stand with an inhale, stretch up with the breath, and exhale and lower your arms. All right, so then shake it off. So already I hope you're feeling more open in your feet. And then ultimately the feet can start to be really articulate. Often in yoga we don't talk too much about the feet. I teach the feet a lot in my yoga classes because it's just for a lot of reasons. But just how important it is to be connected to the earth through our feet, which again is energetic as much as physical. So bring a little bend to your knees and just again sitting back into the hips. So your sit bones go back and apart. It's a big part of how there's this downward movement of the breath down and in. Right, the diaphragm descending, pelvic floor widens with that. So we're going to get to the breath more just directly in a moment. A little while in class, but just for now, we're opening up the mechanisms of breath, right? So when you bend your knees, you can just bring your hands onto the knees themselves and just start to work into your feet. Press your big toe down, lift a heel, flare the pinky toe edge and drag back. The dragging back is, again, you're pulling muscles up. So that when you lower the heel back down, there's both a pulling up with muscles and fascia, but then pushing down to the bones. Other side, just press the big toe down, drag the heel back, pull the muscles up the legs into the hips like you're suctioning. Let your shoulders ultimately feel like suction cups. Up into the hips. And then lower that heel back down and push down firmly. All right, so then stand again with your inhale and reach up. Exhale, lower the arms. And again, inhale, stretch up with the breath. Exhale, bend your knees, hands on thighs. This time, hands on the very tops of the thighs. So if possible, right at the crease where your femur bone meets the hip. That's the juiciest place to put your palm. Maybe you have to bend the elbows to do that. That's fine. Push down on your thighs, and it's literally pushing your thigh bone towards the back of the leg, right? Pushing it into the hamstring. We want that. And from there, toning your belly and that low back curving in and tractioning in these two directions. So what that means is pushing the thighs down and back. That will then super grounding and keeps opening up that downward flow. You also with that are getting a widening through your sit bones, which is important for also that downward release. But tone your belly, elongate your spine. You're also starting to open up more space to the sides to help you to breathe with that. All right, so stay with that. And as you stand back up, keep the thighs back, right? So then tone your core above that. And with an inhale, circle out through the arms. This time, take hold of your right wrist and we'll stretch over to the left. And just now directly stretching into, yes, the side of your ribs, so that the space of the breath there opens up more. The intercostal's opening, that's literally making more space for you to breathe into. And come back up to center and switch it, take the other wrist and shift your hips to the right, torso to the left. Breathing in, breathing out. Keep those legs strong. Can you keep that sense of suction cup feet even? Yes, it's fine to keep your knees a little bent. As soon as you go, just kind of lock out your legs and kind of flop out this way. You've lost that connection. That's it. And so come back up with the inhale, open those arms out, big exhale. Again, inhale, circle those arms up and overhead. Exhale, bring your hands onto your thighs and push the thighs down and back once again. And this time, again, keep those legs strong, bring your hands to the front of your knees there, and pressing big toes down, dragging your heels back, and then start to stretch your legs more fully. And what I mean by that is not bending at your back. Keep that part neutral. And now you're just starting to stretch open those tight legs like we did in down dog, right? So from heels to sit bones stretching, toning your center. And if you go slow with that and keep dragging your heels back, you feel a tone in those muscles, tone in the hamstrings while you stretch. And it's like you don't have to go very far to feel a lot of stretching. Like I feel a lot here. I don't need to tip way forward, though I can. But that's, again, opening up those pathways. Okay. From there, just bend the knees enough to touch down, whatever part of the mat you're on. Just lower yourself down again to table pose. And then we'll come onto our back. So swing your legs around, come on down. So a lot of this stuff is, what we've been working on. If you've been watching my Therapeutic Thursday classes, it's similar. You can have your block, bring it close by. And yes, it's structural, what we're doing here. The structure and the prana go together, ultimately, right? So, feeling maybe doing the same things which we need for regular physical maintenance constantly, right? But just to bring another level into what's happening energetically with this work. So here, with your feet on the floor, and let's actually, go take the block and squeeze it between your thighs. It keeps us in alignment through the legs. And then the low back in its neutral curve. Yes, we want to tighten the abdomen. We'll start to do that here with the exhale, especially toning in around your waist, cinching in, bring that lower to between the hip points at the front ribs, really cinching around. And this is this corset strength that wraps all the way around and even into the spine. You'll feel some tone in the back there too. And that's this muscle, this transverse abdominis. Just when it's strong and healthy, it just helps regulate all of the connections that give us the release and the opening that we need. So with that, keep that tone and pick your feet up off the floor. Keep squeezing the block and bring your hands to the fronts of the thighs for abdominal bracing. Spread your toes. You again make your feet like suction cups, like you flex them a little bit. It's like, again, you're pulling from feet to hips, just like we did from standing. Push against your thighs with your hands forward and up. And so still traction your spine, get really long through tailbone, top of head, and then just deepening this work in your core, deepening how it's all coming together, wrapping around, pulling front to back, this full body connection, this ultimately full body breath. Okay, and then lower the feet back down, and now here's, we'll basically go the other way, so feet on the floor, hips width distance, right, shins vertical, still squeezing that block. Then press your arms into the floor. Now slowly lift your hips up to just firm the other side of the core. Right? We worked hip flexors and core, front of the core a moment ago, and now we're tightening the glutes. So it's not a big back bend here, just enough to activate, squeezing the heels back, the hamstrings, glutes. Push into the arms, part of that, so you're working there as well. Keep breathing in, breathing out, stretching through your knees to the top of your head. One more breath, tone those glutes, and then lower your hips back down. Okay. From there, remove the block, and then take your legs up, one hand on top of each knee. Press down into the backs of your hips. So note what that is not, that's not squeezing it really tight like this. We do that other times, but here, palms on kneecaps and push straight down to the backs of your hips. This will feel similar to when you were standing and pushing on your thighs, the tractioning that it creates and how it opens up this energy flow. So you can stay awake in your feet, draw from feet to hips, push straight down to the backs of your hips, so low back curves in, but then just enough tone in the front. Elongate your spine two directions, tailbone, top of head. This is opening up, again, just really the structure that supports a deepening breath. Maybe you've already noticed there's been like moments of like, where you've gotten a clearing, a deeper exhale. Okay, so from here, take your arms out in a T shape. Separate your feet all the way to the very sides of your mat, the edges of the mat there, and keep them there. And lower both knees to the right for windshield wiper, one of my favorite poses. Maybe you're noticing that I do this one a lot, right? Because it just, again, opens up a big space now in hip flexors and quads, a little bit more here. So stay sharp on the edges of your feet. The biggest stretch is here in the front of that left thigh and hip flexor. So turn the inner thigh down there. Tone your belly in the same way. Twist a little bit. So turn your belly and chest to the left. Press into that left shoulder and think about reaching for that left knee. To increase the intensity there, put your foot on the right foot on the front of your left thigh, not the side. Don't do the side, do the front. You'll push those 2 points together and you'll actually tone what you're stretching, which is always a good idea. I'm just getting a big opening there, getting some more length. All right, so then carefully release that, come back up. Both knees to the left, nice and slow. Pull your ribs back on the right. Press into the back of that right shoulder. And then either stay here and you're thinking about reaching through that right hip and knee, putting the ribs back on the right as you twist, and perhaps adding left foot to the front of the thigh, just like where you push with your hands, just lower, right? Push foot and leg together and create a little healthy connection, integrated tone while you stretch, and then you can reach to that knee, twist a little more open. All right, come back up to center. All right, center up those hips, and again, take your legs up, one hand on top of each knee. Think about the feet being connected to that. All right, and lower both feet to the floor and walk your legs out just straight. Again, another favorite, but so important to get things balanced and open. So feet straight ahead, spread your toes, tone in with your legs, and roll the inner thighs down as you then tighten the hips and the core above that, right? So neutral spine, that low back curves in, and then pulling at your belly and the front ribs in that balanced way. So bend your right leg up, interlace your fingers behind that thigh, and push into your hands. Stay really aware of your feet. So that's my right foot. I'm really working here. I'm not twisting it back this way. It's not just hanging out there. But again, I'm working that pinky toe edge. I'm about pulling into the hip as much as I'm going to push into the hands and then push up. So again, stretching in an active way. Maybe not all the way straight in that direction. You know, this leg on the floor, still same thing. Pulling the muscles up, turning the inner thigh down, but then pushing back out. Send the energy all the way out through my feet. So rebend that knee, lower that leg down, and second side, bend your left leg up, Interlace the fingers there, breathe. And it also becomes a full body breath, drawing from the feet up the legs into the hips. With the inhale, as much as you're breathing down into the pelvis, and then breathing out as you push into the hands and push out through your feet, and maybe stretch that leg a little bit more. And feeling the prana in the body is just, it's like a subtlety, it's a feeling of energy moving that's deeper than just the sensation of physical stretch in the body, which when we're in a pose, like, yeah, physical stretch, feeling that in a real way, often intense, especially if you're newer to yoga. So rebend that knee and lower that leg down, just rest for a moment. And here's why I invite you to just soften for a moment. Can you feel, it might feel like streaming kind of waves of energy. It might feel just like this soft sort of hum, almost like when sunlight is on your skin, you feel its warmth, that kind of deep flowing through. Like right now my feet feel really like tingly and open. That's a feeling of, again, there's been a downward release. Like if I hadn't done all this yoga, it would just feel kind of dull, right, or blocked. Okay, so maybe you're feeling something like that, just to give you a sense of what are we talking about here with prana. All right, so hands at the tops of the knees, and take your knees out wide, hands at the shins, and very specifically, again, work those feet from feet to hips, push into your hands, tuck the sit bones down, but then keep your abdomen strong. And then start to draw your knees back. Push forward, but draw back. Elongate through your spine. All right. And then bring those knees back up. You can roll to one side, or you can here carefully rock and roll up if that feels okay to you. Take your time, and then we'll stand up slowly. If you stand up, feel lightheaded, just, careful with that. Bow forward a little bit. And just let that pass. So take a wide stance on your mat, and have a block out in front of you. So we've done a lot to open up our feet and our legs and our hips. We'll go deeper into that here because we have to get that part opening. So we just want to breathe more deeply. We feel the breath is up in our chest. We can try, and it works obviously to some degree, to just take the breath deeper and try to stretch out into the low ribs more. But if the energy is not descending physically, chronically, then that's just often very frustrating. All right, so with feet straight ahead here, and you can bend your knees like we've already been doing from standing, right? Bend your knees a little bit, hands on hips, and tip forward from your pelvis. And we'll start just with hands on block, and you can also put your hands on the floor if you're already more flexible here. Maybe you're familiar with this. I do this a lot in my regular public classes because this is, again, so crucial to the benefit of yoga that we have the energy opening. So let's get that happening first, and then whatever other poses we might want to do with that. So again, get down to your feet, press your big toes down, spread your pinky toes to press the heel, lift those heels temporarily. Again, you're thinking about from the arches, drawing muscles and energy up with an inhale. Again, sit bones wider, low back curving in. Like get that established, and that alone is going to open up your energy flow. But again, you're toned through the center, not losing that. So then you bend a little more into the right knee as you shift over. And come back up to center with the inhale, bend into the other knee with the exhale. And we'll go side to side several times with that. And it's not just a movement, right? This is not just about, can we bend with one side or the other? But of course that's happening. But can you think about almost like pumping energy from feet up into hips, especially with the inhale? And as you bend into that knee with the exhale, pushing back down to the feet. So inhale up, kind of drawing strength and energy up, and then exhale, pushing down to your feet as you widen. Right, side to side like that, a couple more times. Really getting into the connections that's making, and the opening, more than just a physical stretch. You're really opening up the pathway from feet to hips and back again, so that the breath descends. All right, last time into the left knee, and then come back to center. And the same way, working strong from feet to hips. So bend your knees and drag the heels back. You're pulling the muscles up, and then just start to, again, stretch your legs more. Let me show from this angle. So as you stretch your legs more, and the idea is to lengthen from heels to sit bones. So if that's happening well, you tip forward from the hips more, if that's happening, right? And then it's fine to touch down, and some of you may wish to pull more deeply in. But if you do that, and your knees are straight and you're rounded like this, you have blocked energy flow, right? If you're tight, right? So bend the knees more. You can still tip forward, but just bend the knees. Make sure you're tipping from your hips and the back is tipping forward. So we just work skillfully hopefully with that, right? That's the idea. It doesn't matter what your pose looks like ultimately, except that it's in alignment with how the energy flows. Right, so halfway up again with your breath, hands on hips, shoulders back, come up carefully and just step your feet together and just notice what you got there. Be hips width with your feet. Again, that allows more of a widening, more of a descending. If you're feeling a big exhale, emptying out with that. That's a good sign. Good things are happening. Okay, so with that, having opened up there more, let's do a little more stretching for the calves. So take your blanket roll. If you don't have a blanket roll, if you don't have a blanket, just roll up your mat all the way and be up on your mat, right, as a blanket roll, or as a roll. So I'm going to refresh this roll, make it a little tighter. That's it. And then I'm going to use a block in the front to support that, some height once again. So I think it's better to fold forward first, find that block for support, and then you're going to step up onto the blanket roll. So the ball of the foot is up on the roll, pressing the big toe down, spreading the pinky toe apart. And you lift the heels up higher even. The same thing we did from the beginning in your work in your downward facing dog. It's like from the feet up into the hips, so you actually tone those heels up, but then against that start to lower the heels back down without letting that tone release. So that's just starting to feel like a very intense, yes, stretch on those calves. Breathe into it. I want you to feel just the way that, again, there's a kind of a organic deepening of your breath. As you get the tissues to open, the prana starts to flow, and you might feel this sort of spontaneous, just clearing breath. Like I just had one of those, big exhale. It's like a reset of your nervous system. So here you do bend your knees, at least for part of this, so that you get into the deeper stretch in the calf, deeper muscle there. And then don't worry about whether your low back is rounding or not, but do straighten your knees all the way at some point, because that's going to get the gastrocnemius, that more surface muscle. But again, yes, really pushing the ball of the foot. It's not passive here. That will overstretch your Achilles. Don't do that, right? But you keep the push in the ball of the foot, brings the stretch into the belly of the muscle, which is where we want it always. Okay, so then bring your heel up onto the roll, the ball of the foot onto the floor, and then sit your hips back and down and into slow and down into a little squat here. If your knees don't permit this position, you can do a half squat like this. You can also roll, if you have an extra blanket, putting a blanket roll behind the knees here. Sometimes that often means like this is an assist from the teacher. Maybe just the hands like this. That's kind of cool. I've never done that before. But that makes space in the knee, just like with the calf smashing. If your hands tolerate being sat on, squished a little bit, but that gives your knees a little space if you need that. But if you can sit down like this, this is excellent downward release pose, right? You just get that, again, thighs ground, hips ground. You can push it against your knees with your elbows and lift your rib cage out of your hips. And this, again, this downward release is called the Apanavayu, as you know, the terminology for the pranic pathways just really opens up here. So then, come on up just onto the floor or your mat, whatever you've got there, and into a standing forward fold. You may find here hamstrings, we've done it, right? We've opened up hamstrings and calves and feet, and you may find that your forward fold is just more fluid, right? Even if you self-describe as tight hamstringed, right? There's the more of a fluidity, and that's the prana flowing. That's a good thing. So if unroll your mat if you need to, of course. If you didn't use a mat under your calves there, you can step back to hands and knees. And then let's sit back on the block to start with. Maybe you need to stay there. But iron your calf muscles flat and come on down and sit on the blanket. Maybe you have to be on a higher blanket, maybe on a lower blanket. But here, just make sure the feet are pointing straight back, spreading those pinky toes apart, and turn the inner thighs down, widen your sit bones apart. And here you're in the low back curving in. Again, sometimes this pose is easier for people to sit well, giving that low back in its natural curve. And sometimes the knees, again, are a challenge and we have to sit higher or take some padding. Again, this is a worthwhile pose, but it might need some, a special guidance. And of course, I can't see you all live stream. So we'll just be here for a few moments with that said, but try to find your way to a neutral curve, sitting higher if you need to, and just sit for a moment and notice can you feel that downward release? Can you feel that you're heavier in your pelvic bones, your thigh bones? And with that, just the breath, the inhale descending down a little bit more, widening out into those low ribs a little bit more, and then just flowing back up and out from there. That's what we're after here. Okay. So then, let's keep going. Come on up to your table. And if you need to stretch your leg out from there, you can do a down dog if that's easy for you. Or just do one leg at a time like so, pressing back with the heel and the other heel, right? Or if you're down dog, just don't pedal so much in down dog after Virasana. Just think about stretching through, just opening up those knees. And then come back to table, and if you have a couple of blocks, you can put them at the front of the mat. If you don't have blocks, it's fine. Step your right foot up, and you can either have hands on blocks, or you can have hands on your front knee. But I do want to get a little more stretch in that hip flexor on that back leg. If you watch my psoas TLC Thursday, this will be similar awareness here. So hands on the front knee or hands on blocks. Especially if you have a block, take your right foot and shin out to meet the arm and the block there. It just gives a nice support to what that front hip is doing. But again, what we're not doing here is just sinking down with the weight of gravity. That's going to tend to block your hip flexors and block the opening. But again, from feet to hips, it's the same alignment work, driving the feet towards each other. That back leg especially, turn the inner thigh back. This right hip tightening underneath more. And tone your belly in and up. And then as you bend to the front knee, you can push that knee to the right. And really the front leg, as you tighten the glute and push forward, is taking you deeper into the stretch. And that back leg is just holding strong kind of in the other direction. So it's a little bit of a healthy tug of war there. Hands can stay on blocks. You can bring hands to front knee. That will increase the stretch through that hip flexor on the left. Some you can bring hands to hips if you feel supported. You can even reach those arms up and lift your rib cage out of the hips as you bend deeper into the front knee. But again, we're not just sinking down passively. There's a lot of engagement and alignment supporting all of that. All right, lower it back down and we'll switch. Go back to table. Left foot forward, use those blocks if you've got them. We're gonna have hands on the front knee. What's nice about the blocks is you can take your foot and shin and kind of have it against the block there and make sure the knees over the ankle, not going past the ankle. And again, set up the legs, that back leg, like we're laying on our backs. Drag the knee forward and like you're squeezing a block, turn the inner right thigh back. And lift your abdomen in and up. Tighten that left hip in and under. And as you push the knee to the left, to help you with that, again, bending into the front knee to deepen the stretch. And yes, my pelvis is moving forward and down. Yes, even the front of my right thigh is moving forward and down, but I'm not just letting that go. I'm not just dropping down like this, right? So I'm keeping it all happening. And then your option, again, hands, if maybe you start with hands on the front, you're just holding all the engagements. Maybe your hands are on hips. As you lift up, maybe you're stretching arms carefully overhead. It's just a way of, again, lifting the rib cage out of the hips. And bending deeper into that front knee from there without letting that go. Holding all the parts in connection, as always. And carefully lower down. That's it. And step back to hands and knees once again. All right. And from there, let's come on down to our backs. Just want to bring one more, another stretch to the hips, and then I want to get more into the breath, the actual breath here. So come on down and come onto your back. Actually, we'll do a few poses with that said. So have your block close by. Let's do this first. So we're going to lift into kind of a simple supported bridge, not necessarily the biggest supported bridge of your life. But before we do that, lift up and bring hands to the tops of the knees again, push straight down, and just get that sense of tractioning, hips down, elongate the spine. Just feel what you've done so far. Can you feel that your thigh bones now that you've done various other postures, as you push down, the femur bones as if go right into the hip socket more. They ground, they seat into the hip socket and they get towards the hamstrings. And that is so good for that downward flow, right? So then lower your feet to the floor and then take a big breath at the sides of the torso. We started early in class with a big side body stretch. So get that happening again, just lengthening through the sides. You can walk shoulder blades a little underneath you. Press into your feet, firm those glutes, and lift up. And you can put your block, you can certainly put it on the, any height. Low side would be fine. Medium side, if it feels good to you to get up on the tall side, you certainly can do that. But notice the spine. Either way, this is more of a back bend shape. So think cow pose. What I don't want you to do is to tuck your tail up and try to flatten your low back here. That's going to block the pranic flow. So let me show more from like the medium side of the block. So if you're on the medium side, let your sit bones drop down. Like you were inhaling, lifting tail, lifting head, right? Getting more into that shape. So turning the sit bones a little bit down, lifting your chest. You can still firm your glutes, and if you need to tighten the abdominals, that's fine. Just give yourself some length here. And especially length up to the sides of the torso. So I'm going to go back up to my tall side. That feels good to me, but you just stay where you want to stay with that. And this then starts to, of course, open us across the top chest more, giving us a much needed expansion there. And it's a little bit of inversion, so we feel that energetically. We've been working really on grounding the feet and stay connected then to your feet. Stay with your thighs more straight ahead, right? But then here, continue to draw that, lengthen that space up to the sides of the torso. It's like send your pelvic bones still reaching through your knees, but then the length through your sides of your torso, the rib cage lifting out of the hips. So get more on the tops of shoulders that way. A common error in bridge is to pull your shoulders too far down, kind of shorten the side there. So almost like you're shrugging, but it's not a shrug. It's a breath, a space of the breath with the sides. Do bring your shoulder blades more underneath you. And then take a few breaths here. This just keeps opening up again. The front body, the hip flexors, and the space of the diaphragm, it just kind of moves down a little more easily here, even as the breath is filling you up. And just take a few more breaths here, just letting this shape give us that space and that clearing. And yes, if keeping a slight more back bend shape for you here is new to you and you feel pinchy, just tighten your glutes. You can tighten your glutes without tucking. It's like you can use your glutes even when the pelvis is tipped into a back bend shape. So don't be afraid to tighten and to tone the abdomen, but you may find that if you just elongate from under your ribs through your knees and through the top of the head, there's a natural shrink wrapping of core muscles that give you the support that you need without having to tuck or grip anywhere. All right. Pressing your feet, use those strong glutes to lift your hips up, lower your pelvis, not your spine. So just drop back down the way you came up, so you're not rolling the spine here. And then take your arms out wide, and again, feet to the edges. And you can do now like a gently moving windshield wiper, knees one side of the other. And just open up that space, just rocking it out, loosening it up. Okay, and come back up to the top and cross your right ankle over your knee. Push ankle into knee. We'll stretch a little deeper into the hips there, and then tone your abdomen, and you can lift that left leg up, pull behind your thigh or to the shin. And this will just be our forward fold that counteracts, counterposes that back bend and stretches out the hips a little bit more. It's never though just about the physical stretch. Like what are we tapping into here? So again, from feet to hips, that same work, stay connected. Try to ground your hips here by pushing into your hands, elongating your spine. And so you can draw tighter if you want a little more stretch, but just keep that space opened up. All right, lower down from there, switch it out, cross the left ankle over, push ankle into knee, push into your hands on the floor. Use your core muscles carefully to lift up. You pull behind the thigh or to the shin. And again, though, thinking of pranic flow, it ultimately is a full body breath. It's like from soles of feet, and from your hands, a sense of breathing in, all the parts coming together, the sense of receiving the breath all the way in and down. And then as you breathe out, yes, there's a filling back out of your form, pushing out through your feet, moving in a little closer, but always with length, right? But yes, very much we have to stretch our tissues, stretching the hips here a little bit more, of course. All right, so release down from there. And again, opening up fascia, so just hug the knees up, maybe a little wider, it's good, and rock a little bit side to side. Opening up fascia is about opening up pranic flow as well. All right, so with that, either roll to one side or carefully rock up. And let's, I want to guide us through a little bit of breath awareness here. So sit up on your blanket or up on your blocks. But sit high enough like we did at the beginning, right? That's so important. We have that support. And sit with legs crossed in front. Now, if you found that before when we sat in Virasana and you had your hips, the feet pointed back and you were sitting on a block, if that was working better for you and you were feeling more of this downward descent, please come back to that. Do that instead. But if it works for you to sit up on your blanket and sit comfortably with crossed legs, go ahead and do that. Either way, make sure we want your pelvis to be balanced and aligned here. So turn the inner thighs down, widen the sit bones apart, right? And so the pelvic floor level to the earth. Maybe you have to sit up higher to get there, making what I'm doing here is this sort of diamond shape of your pelvic floor level to the earth. That means you're not sitting on your tailbone. It's going to be further back behind you. You're really sitting on the fronts of the sit bones, even the tops of the thigh bones more, right? And then just sitting up tall and easy, maybe you have to draw back through your center more. And really the most primary pranayama breath practice before we start to do these deeper ujjayi breaths, before we want to do anything that's, again, effortful, is to just, are we receiving the breath all the way in and down? Take a moment to just place your hands in whatever way feels comfortable. I like to put my thumbs at the lowest part of my ribs in the back and the fingers wrapping around to the front. And that's the part you want to feel expanding as you inhale. Sometimes we talk about breathing into the belly. That's great. That's part of it too. But really it's about the breath in the ribs, the low ribs. When it breathes down, we want the breath to go to the back of the ribs first and wide. Now here's the thing. We've been opening up our bodies this whole practice. And so instead of this being like this big, muscular effort to deepen the breath, how much can you by just giving a little pressure of your hands at the sides of the ribs and low ribs, can you feel when you breathe in just more of an expansion there? Down and in and wide at the inhale. And then letting the breath flow out from there, just fully, completely emptying out. And then maybe another breath down and wide into your hands. And then the exhale just flowing out. If anything, just get a little taller with the exhale, lifting a little more through the top of the head. Then place your hands on your thighs. And again, the most natural pranayama, I learned this from my Ayurveda teacher, is that the inhale goes all the way down, even into the bowl of your pelvis. So just receiving the inhale, there's naturally, again, a muscular widening. The pelvic floor widens when you inhale. But how much can you feel it, like the descent of the breath, just when you inhale, just is down and heavy and wide in your pelvis. That's subtle, but it's there to find. And then again, the breath out just naturally kind of rises back up. There's a lift through the top of the head. And if that's blocked, again, we just did a whole practice. Hopefully that's not blocked. Okay, we've opened that up physically. Maybe you're feeling that more. I sometimes call this the drinking breath. Because you think about, you have a glass that you want to fill with water. You pour the water into the glass. It goes to the very bottom first and then fills up, right? Yes, it fills up. So yes, let your inhale fill up through the sides of the torso. Yes, the top of the breath, the chest lifts, the neck, even through the sides of the neck, there's a lift in the collarbones. But that's because you're being filled up from the bottom up. So I invite you just to a few more breaths to, again, it's not about effort here, but just open your glass a little wider. Open your glass to receive the breath. Just let the breath pour in. That's what it does. You don't have to make that happen. So soften your muscles a little bit. Receive all the way in and down. And then the breath just moving out from there. We're just going to take another moment or two here. If you know Ujjayi breath, I'm not going to teach you Ujjayi here, but if you know that, having established this deep down and wide opening, just add a little channeling of that Ujjayi sound into that and just fill then the torso. Fill, it's very subtle. Maybe some of you know like the energy locks. Don't even worry about those. Don't clamp at the, don't tighten the muscles there. Just, you may feel a very subtle energetic support that then really allows this filling of the breath. If you don't know Ujjayi breath, just continue to receive that sweetness, that full downward connection. Connects you to the earth, it connects you to this pranic nourishment. So you have that apana vayu, establish the prana vayu, where you just are breathing down and in, and back up and out with the exhale, but all the way down to the bowl of the pelvis. One more breath. Okay, so from there, let's stretch out onto our backs. Get a shavasana. It's important to feel that as well. So come onto your back, stretch your legs out long. Put my socks on, it's chilly in here today. So stretch out onto your back. Take a moment when you lay down on your back to really reach long through your legs, opening through the soles of your feet. So ultimately, of course, we're going to relax the legs. Think about reaching through one leg, even turning the inner thigh down as you reach and open through the sole of the foot. Do that on both sides. And it's like, yes, again, even from the pelvis, reaching through both feet. Meanwhile, then the big breath through the sides of the torso, really filling you up. And the shoulder blades underneath you more. And then with your exhale, just let it all go. Let your ribcage settle back to the ground. Let your legs roll back out. That's the resting position. Right? We're resting everything now. And palms, if they're by your sides, palms up, and just let the fingers really relax back in towards the palm. If you want, if it feels comfortable to have your hands in your abdomen, that's fine. Even if that feels soothing, do that instead, it's fine. I invite you to feel the pranic flow. Let your breath come totally natural now. Don't do any more active breathing, no breath exercises, except to notice that, again, there's that downward movement. If you had your hands on your torso, you might even feel like all the way down. Like when I breathe in, I feel actually my lowest belly, right above my pubic bone, actually rises a little bit, right? Not just the belly at the navel, it's all the way down. And just receiving that. Again, you don't have to, you're not doing anything effortful here. So prana is the life force. It rides on the breath. The oxygen comes in on the breath, as does the prana, this conscious energy that is more than just breath. It's nourishing, awakening, enlivening energy. So though hopefully you feel more your breathing pathways opened, also feel your whole body. Maybe there's again that tingling, that soft hum through your feet and legs and hips especially. We spend a lot of time on that because it's just so important that that's opened up. With that, if you feel heavy through your hips and your legs, that's good. That's part of that downward clearing that's happened. You just rest into that. Maybe feel it as like and when that pranic pathway opens, you feel it through the whole body. That facilitates like a full body circulation of energy. You might feel it as like a subtle throb, or even like just a streaming kind of waves streaming up and down, just a full body tingle. And it just feels good. Prana always feels good. It has its essential qualities: wellness, goodness. It is the flow of life that you have opened up within yourself. That's always flowing within you. That's always supporting you. But when our pathways are blocked, when there's obstructions and stagnation, and again, that's the experience of being stressed, being anxious, being, feeling the impact of life. It's what we would call it. From the perspective of prana, we would say, well, the prana is blocked and imbalanced. And now you have this downward release, this inward filling that just allows you to just feel connected to the flow of life, to trust it more. You're not trying to make anything happen here, more than just this natural pulsating flow that you've opened up through your practice. And that's how the yoga practice can shift our mental health, right? To shift us out of anxiousness, shift us perhaps out of, depression. Is it a miracle cure? Of course not. But even if we just feel a little more of a light, a more of a grounding, a little more of a brightening, what a gift. And when we feel more connected to the flow of life, we even naturally feel more of a devotion, wanting to, yes, take care of ourselves, take care of each other, take care of nature, to consider what way can we, in this really challenging time we're living in, what way can we participate in a more evolutionary unfolding. And when the prana flows, there's insights and creativity that open up from there. So we're past 1 o'clock. I just want to invite you once again to just stay as long as you like in your shavasana. That was a good shavasana. If you're ready to carefully deepen the breath and roll to one side and come back up, you can. Otherwise, keep resting. There's something so sweet in what we've opened up to today. So you can continue to just be in that space. Maybe you need a nap. We're fatigued. We hold a lot of fatigue, so get the rest that you need here. Or just continue to relish the space that you found. So I'm going to bring it to a close. Those of you watching live, thank you for being here. You can send me a note. I'll see your comments on the video if you want to post that a little later. Again, I'm going to reevaluate the schedules. I'll post it, of course, through the online my pages and so on, so you'll know my schedule for May, what we'll do on these live offerings. Okay, take good care, everybody. Namaste. Hey, Kristen, good to see you. All right, it's gonna end it now.